Imagine for a second, like, tracking every single physical ache you feel,
Oh, wow.
right? Every bite of food you eat, every complex problem you solve, every single day for 15 years straight.
That's a staggering amount of data.
It is. Because think about it, most of us don't even know what we had for breakfast on Tuesday.
Let alone remember, the exact source of a backache from 3 years ago.
Exactly. We just sort of float through our routines. And when things break down, when we feel sluggish or our joints hurt or we lose focus, we just chalk it up to getting older or just, the unavoidable chaos of life.
Yeah, it really is the default human condition to just accept a baseline level of physical and mental friction. We treat our bodies and our minds like a black box. Something goes wrong and we hope it fixes itself.
Right.
We rarely treat our own lives like a complex system that can actually be, analyzed and understood and debugged.
Which is exactly why the source material we were looking at today is so incredibly compelling. Today we're doing a deep dive into a very specific, meticulously kept public diary.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's a blog post titled This Week in Review, 2026, Week 13. And it was published on a website called keonmeng.org.
Right.
The author is a self-described old software plumber named Ang.
And, to really appreciate the scale of this, you have to understand that this isn't some passing New Year's resolution project.
Oh, definitely not.
No, this archive has been running continuously since 2011.
Wow.
Yeah, it contains thousands of entries that document a life with a level of granularity that it borders on the astonishing. I mean, he logs everything from his exact sleep cycles to the oxygen levels in his aquariums.
Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission for you today is to explore how applying a software engineer's tinkering mindset to everyday life can actually yield incredible results.
It really can.
From sleep posture to fish keeping, we are going to look at how Ang isolates variables to create a life that is remarkably resilient and fascinating and, deeply intentional.
Yeah.
We're going to look at what happens when you decide to actively debug your own reality.
And the most logical place to start that debugging process is with the foundational hardware, right? The physical body itself.
Makes sense.
When you look at the health and wellness section of his Week 13 review, you immediately see this highly quantified approach to his physical state.
Yeah, like he tracks his sleep meticulously. He notes an average of 6.7 hours daily for that specific week.
But he doesn't just look at the duration.
Right, he looks at the quality. He notes that his sleep had been rather sporadic, marked by, multiple sessions of fragmented sleep. Now, normally when people experience fragmented sleep, what do? They just buy a larger coffee the next morning.
Right, and just power through a miserable afternoon. Or they buy, expensive supplements hoping for a quick chemical fix. But Ang treats this fragmented sleep like a system error.
I love that. A system error.
Yeah. He notes that he'd been dealing with sporadic physical pain, particularly in his back. And instead of just accepting it, he isolates a specific environmental variable.
His pillow.
His pillow. He realized that his regular sleep posture was creating a misalignment between his neck, the specific density of his pillow, and the firmness of his bed.
And his intervention is just so simple. He switches to a softer pillow, and he writes in his log that it automatically reduced or entirely removed the tension in his back.
Automatically.
Yeah, I love that word, automatically.
Yeah.
Because from the outside, getting rid of chronic back pain overnight, well, it seems like magic.
Right.
But it's actually just the result of basic observation.
It is basic observation, but it's incredibly rare. Let's look at the mechanism of what's happening there.
Okay.
When your cervical spine is out of alignment for 7 hours a night, you're compressing nerves, you're restricting blood flow. Yeah, and that creates localized inflammation. So your brain perceives that discomfort and pulls you out of deep restorative sleep.
Into lighter sleep stages.
Exactly, just to force you to shift positions. That is why his sleep was fragmented.
Wow.
So by simply changing the density of the foam under his head, he removed the mechanical friction. The magic is just basic physics applied to human anatomy.
It makes me wonder, and I really want you listening to think about this too. Is it possible we all have a wrong pillow in our lives?
Oh, that's a great question.
Right. I mean, some subtle, continuous source of physical or mental friction that we just ignore because we aren't tracking our own data.
Yeah, we just accept the pain as a permanent feature of our operating system.
Exactly.
Well, what's fascinating here is how this micro-level tracking connects directly to the broader context of aging and resilience.
How so?
You see this same mindset in how he manages his daily movement. He isn't out there training for an ultramarathon, which often just breaks the body down further.
Right.
He tracks his steps. He targets bands of 4,500, 6,000, or 8,000 steps daily. And during this specific holiday week, despite travel throwing off his schedule, he still averaged 6,112 steps.
But the travel did cause a flare-up.
Yeah.
He mentions experiencing sporadic knee pain due to the increased movement and changing environments.
Notice his response, though. He doesn't panic. And he doesn't use the knee pain as an excuse to just collapse on the couch for the rest of the week.
Which is what I would probably do.
Right, but he initiates a recovery protocol. He manages the joint pain with targeted massaging, heat pad treatments, and strength recovery training 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah, he specifically points out that the massaging and heat pads were a significant factor in reducing the pain. And he makes a note that rebuilding leg muscle is of critical importance for people around his age. But again, the approach is just so measured.
It's very intentional.
Yeah, he plans to hit his step goals by just doing daily chores, taking short walks during gardening, or doing grocery runs, just aiming for a gentle 5,500 to 6,500 steps moving forward.
From a physiological standpoint, this is the absolute definition of incremental maintenance.
Incremental maintenance.
Yeah. Cartilage and joint health rely on movement to circulate synovial fluid.
The body's natural lubricant.
Exactly. So if you stop moving because of minor pain, the joint dries out and degrades faster.
Oh, wow.
By keeping his movement moderate but consistent and using heat to increase blood flow for healing, he's ensuring the hardware stays functional. It's proactive servicing, not reactive surgery.
That proactive servicing applies to the internal systems as well, I think, because he mentions that a relapsed inflammation issue was rectified through proper food intake and supplements.
Yes.
And I think this is where we see the transition from merely fixing the physical hardware to actively optimizing the fuel that runs the machine.
The diet and mental routines are really where the engineering mindset takes over. The level of detail in his week 13 logs regarding his intake is just staggering.
Okay, let's talk about those metrics. Because he logs a 16-8-Feb2 intermittent fasting routine. He tracks a very specific dietary macro ratio. He logs it as a 211 or 221 plants protein carb diet. While also noting he's striving for an even 1.1.1 balance.
Right.
And he notes his overall daily average weight down to the decimal point, 68.89 kilograms.
We should probably clarify what that fasting protocol actually does. A 16.8 fasting window, meaning you fast for 16 hours and eat all your meals within an 8-hour window, isn't just a diet trend. No. When you withhold calories for 16 hours, your body exhausts its easily accessible glycogen stores.
Okay.
It then switches to burning stored fat for energy, but more importantly, it triggers a cellular process called autophagy.
Right, which is essentially the body's internal recycling program, clearing out damaged cells and junk protein.
Exactly. It's system maintenance at a microscopic level. And combining that with a 1.1.1 ratio of plants, protein, and carbs ensures that when he does eat, he isn't spiking his blood sugar.
Got it.
A massive carb intake causes an insulin spike, which is inevitably followed by a crash, that mid-afternoon brain fog we all know.
Oh, yeah.
He is engineering his fuel to provide a perfectly flat, stable energy curve.
And he also has specific quotas for certain foods, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
He eats fish, specifically sardines, 2 or 3 times a week to target inflammation. He notes that increasing his daily ginger intake improved his appetite and overall well-being. And perhaps the most disciplined rule of all he eats, to exactly 70% fullness.
Yeah, the 70% fullness rule is deeply tied to longevity practices. It's similar to the Okinawan concept of harahachibu.
Okay.
It takes the stomach about 20 minutes to signal the brain that it's full. By stopping at an estimated 70%, you avoid the mechanical stress of an over-distended stomach.
And the metabolic stress of processing excess calories.
Oh, precisely.
Okay, I have to jump in and push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
As someone reading this, I look at tracking a precise macro ratio, enforcing a strict 70% fullness limit, adding specific quotas for sardines, weighing yourself down to the decimal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, doesn't this actually make life incredibly tedious?
It sounds like a lot.
Right. Like, is it just exhausting for the average person to maintain that level of constant vigilance over every single bite of food. It feels like it would strip all the joy and spontaneity out of a meal.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the goal here isn't rigidity for the sake of punishment or, obsession.
Okay.
The goal is biological stability. You have to look at the return on investment, the gingerol in the ginger, the high omega-3 fatty acids in the sardines. These aren't just arbitrary choices.
Right.
They actively lower inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein in the bloodstream.
Oh, I see.
When your body isn't constantly exhausting its immune system, fighting off systemic inflammation from poor food choices, you get your energy back. So the discipline actually creates freedom.
The freedom to not feel terrible all the time.
Precisely. Most people assume that feeling slightly lethargic and foggy is just a normal part of existence. Eng is proving it's actually an anomaly caused by bad fuel.
Wow.
And that physical stability directly supports his mental stability, which he treats with the exact same rigor.
His mental routines are fascinating.
Yeah.
He didn't just write down a vague goal like, I want to be more mindful this year.
No.
He systematically upgraded his mental software.
Yeah.
He mentions moving from a single meditation session per day to 2 or 3 short sessions.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about just 1, 2, or 3 minutes of sitting meditation.
Which completely lowers the barrier to entry, right?
Yeah.
You don't need a silent ashram for a 2-minute session.
Right. And he integrates it directly into his movement. Like, he logged a 10-minute session while traveling in a car to a new location.
Yeah.
He does walking meditations after meals, or even while he is just outside in the yard raking leaves. And he mentions practicing a specific technique called mental noting.
Yeah, so mental noting is a Vipassana meditation technique. It's where you simply apply a one-word label to whatever you're experiencing in the moment,
Like what?
like thinking or hearing or worrying, and then you just let it go. You don't follow the thought down the rabbit hole, you just acknowledge it and release it.
Oh, okay.
He describes his resulting state of mind as rather stoic and insightful.
I love how you phrased it earlier when we were reviewing his notes.
Mm-hmm.
You called these short, frequent meditations operating system updates.
Yeah, it's really the most accurate way to look at it. Think about the RAM, the short-term memory cache, on your computer.
Right.
When you open too many browser tabs, the system starts to lag because the cache is full of background processes that are eating up your memory.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right. Well, human anxiety works the exact same way. We carry stress from a morning email into our afternoon meetings.
Yeah.
Taking 2 minutes to do a mental noting practice clears the mental cache. It closes all those background tabs so his mind remains sharp and responsive.
Clearing the mental cache. That makes perfect sense. And when you look at the sheer amount of things this man accomplishes in a single week, you realize that all this physical and mental maintenance isn't just to exist comfortably.
No, definitely not.
It acts as the engine for an absolutely staggering amount of daily creative and technical output.
This is where the compound interest of his lifestyle becomes undeniable. The maintenance serves a purpose.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the projects and hobbies section of this weekly review is wild.
It really is.
Most people might have like one hobby they dabble in on the weekends. Aang treats his personal projects with the same intense curiosity and rigor as his professional skills.
Yeah.
He writes that these activities build skills, create a sense of accomplishment, and add purpose beyond daily routines.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the software side first.
Even in his free time, the software plumber is building and fixing pipes.
He is making daily pull requests, or PRs, to major programming languages. He mentions contributions to Go, Python, Elixir, Erlang, Rust, and Haskell. Yeah. In week 13 specifically, he notes sporadic PRs updating GitHub CI for Elixir dependencies for the Elixir 1.1 Mic and Erlang OTP 28 releases.
Now, for anyone listening who doesn't write code, throwing around terms like Elixir dependencies and Erlang OTP can sound like a foreign language.
Totally.
But you don't need to know the syntax to understand the behavior. Erlang and Elixir are highly concurrent programming languages used to build massive, scalable systems like, think, telecommunications networks or like huge messaging apps.
Okay.
Pushing a pull request means he is submitting code to improve these global systems.
And he's doing this for fun.
Exactly.
He also talks about tinkering with his own pet Python and Haskell projects, gaining insights on how to refactor code, which basically means rewriting it to be cleaner and more efficient without changing what it actually does.
Right. The key takeaway here is neuroplasticity. By constantly challenging his brain to learn the distinct logic structures of different programming languages, he is actively building new neural pathways.
Oh, wow.
It's like a linguistic puzzle that keeps his cognitive functions incredibly sharp. But what's truly remarkable is how seamlessly he transitions from deep systems architecture to everyday domestic chores.
Yes, this might be the most brilliant insight in the entire blog post. When it comes to home improvement and cleaning, his explicit rule is to declutter exactly one item per day.
Just one item.
Just one item. And in software engineering, there is a fundamental concept called continuous integration.
Yes, CI. It's how modern software is built.
Right. Instead of 100 developers working in isolation for 6 months and then trying to merge all their massive changes together on one day.
Which almost always results in catastrophic system crashes.
Exactly. Instead of doing that, continuous integration means every developer merges tiny incremental changes into the main code base multiple times a day. If something breaks, it's a tiny fix. Aang is applying continuous integration to cleaning his house.
It is a profound psychological trick. Think about how humans usually clean.
We ignore the mess until the house is a disaster.
Right, and then we sacrifice an entire stressful Saturday to a massive spring cleaning overhaul. It's exhausting and we hate it.
Yep.
By deploying one small patch a day, throwing away one old receipt, organizing one single drawer, he completely removes the overwhelm. The house remains permanently in a state of baseline cleanliness.
And he applies this exact same systematic mindset to his flora and fauna. He has 4 new workspaces for gardening. He's growing plants from seeds and cuttings, doing the daily chores of watering and weeding.
Yeah.
But his fish keeping takes the experimentation to another level entirely. The man maintains a yellow-blue rack for his aquariums.
He is highly analytical about his environment, even the underwater ones.
He notes that due to an increased density in his fish population, the dissolved oxygen levels in the water were likely dropping.
Okay.
So he starts using an air stone to increase the oxygenated air. But the tinkerer's brain never stops at just solving the immediate problem. He immediately asks a new question. He starts wondering if that same air stone application, that specific increase in oxygen, would work for priming his Apistogramma cichlid pairs for breeding.
And just to add some context here, Apistogramma cichlids are small, incredibly colorful, but notoriously sensitive dwarf fish.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They require highly specific water parameters like pH, temperature, oxygen, just to thrive, let alone breed.
Wow.
For an engineer, breeding them isn't just having a pet. It is a complex biological puzzle with dozens of variables to balance.
And he makes a note in his public diary to investigate this breeding theory in the future. He's constantly running these little domestic experiments.
This raises an important question about how we spend our own time. We live in a cultural era defined by passive consumption. We doom scroll social media, we binge watch television, we sit and watch other people live their lives on screens.
Right.
But Aang is actively creating. He is interacting with the physical and digital world in a way that generates data, creates biological life, and leaves a tangible trace.
And the sheer volume of that trace is what makes this 15-year archive so awe-inspiring. In his writing and reading section for week 13, he notes that he reads fiction for 5 to 10 minutes daily.
Nice.
And he's trying to make progress on a nonfiction book about the 3 highs, referring to high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and high cholesterol. He's also revisiting a long-pending topic on book typesetting and cover design. But his goal for his own writing output, 3 posts daily.
3 thoughtful posts a day is a massive commitment of time and focus.
It is staggering when you look at the sidebar of his blog, which categorizes his archive by date. In just the first 3 months of 2026 alone, he published 264 posts.
Wow.
The month of March 2026 alone had 87 individual entries.
And remember the scale we talked about earlier, this public documentation goes all the way back to 2026.
Just reading the sequence of his post titles is a trip through a deeply curious mind. Listen to this run of titles from March 2026.
Let's hear it.
Notes on Gardening Part 850, The Actual Flower, followed by Notes on Fishkeeping Part 220, Why Golden Mabuna, followed by Notes on Haskell Programming Part 94, Improving, then Notes on Typesetting Part 28, Decoding Modern Book, and finally, Notes on Networking Part 11, Analyzing Wi-Fi 7.
That's incredible.
It's like wandering through the workshop of a modern Renaissance tinkerer.
What this massive archive proves is the incredible compounding effect of documenting your life's minor obsessions. Think about your own life. Most of us have a passing thought about a Wi-Fi network protocol, or a specific gardening technique, or a weird dream we had. But because we don't capture it, that thought simply vanishes into the ether. By writing it down, even if it's just a few paragraphs, Aang is building a highly searchable, permanent database of his own consciousness.
Wow.
He's honoring his own curiosity by giving it a permanent home.
He really is. And the beauty of it is that it's not about achieving world-class expertise in all these separate domains.
Right.
It's about the joy of the process itself. Figuring out how to refactor a pet Haskell project or testing an air stone on dwarf cichlids isn't going to change the world. But it clearly brings him a profound, continuous sense of personal satisfaction.
And that satisfaction is the ultimate dividend of the hardware and software maintenance we discussed at the beginning.
Absolutely.
When your back doesn't hurt because you observed the data and found the right pillow, and your mind isn't racing with anxiety because you took 2 minutes to clear the cache with a walking meditation,
Yeah.
and your energy isn't crashing because you managed your systemic inflammation, you actually have the physical and mental bandwidth left over to care about epistogramma cichlids and elixir dependencies.
So what does this all mean? As we look back at the meticulously logged, highly quantified life of an old software plumber, the ultimate lesson here isn't that you need to go out and learn the Erlang programming language tonight.
Definitely not.
And you certainly don't need to force yourself to eat sardines twice a week or stress over hitting exactly 70% fullness at dinner if that doesn't serve you.
The specific inputs of his routine are custom tailored to his specific hardware. The true takeaway is the methodology behind those inputs.
Exactly. The takeaway is the mindset. It's about applying genuine analytical curiosity to your own existence. It's about tracking your habits, identifying the hidden variables that cause friction in your days, and treating your life as a series of small, fascinating experiments.
Yeah.
When you stop accepting discomfort as a default state, you don't just undo your daily routine. You actively engineer a life of incredible resilience and joy.
You transition from being a passive user, suffering through bugs in the software, to becoming the lead developer of your own life.
I love that framing. You become the developer.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder today as you go back out into your own routines.
Yeah, think about this.
Think about the system logs of your own life. If you were to start writing your own public weekly review today, meticulously documenting your sleep quality, your random aches, your meals, and your distractions, what invisible patterns would suddenly emerge?
What hidden bugs in your daily routine would become glaringly obvious? And perhaps most importantly, would the simple act of documenting your week force you to finally deploy the small patches you've been putting off? Think about the back-end code of your human life and what one tiny isolated change could do.